Welcome to your Daily Dose of Sunday School, episode 130. We continue with the fifth commandment, honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long upon the land which the Lord your God gives you. We're on question 66 of the Westminster Shorter Catechism. What is the reason annexed to the fifth commandment? The reason annexed to the fifth commandment is a promise of long life and prosperity as far as it shall serve for God's glory and their own good, to all such as keep this commandment. So, Paul highlights this promise in Ephesians 6, 2 and 3. Honor your father and your mother. This is the first commandment with a promise that it may go well with you and that you may live long in the land. So, honoring your father and your mother is important enough that to not do it, it is generally, so I think that's the point of the Westminster Shorter Catechism says, as far as it shall serve for God's glory and your own good. This is a general statement. Generally, if you learn to honor your father and mother, your life will be long-lasting. You'll have a long life. And if you don't learn that, generally your life will be short. And I believe this applies to societies as well. If children are generally taught to honor their father and mother, then the society is stable, prosperous. If children are not taught that, then the society is going to be, it's not going to make it for very long. Now, because Paul references Ephesians 6, 2, and references this promise in Ephesians 6, 2, and 3, I think we can safely say that this is not simply something for Israel in the land in which they lived. And we really see in our society today, I think, the fruit of not learning to honor your father and your mother. So I'm always nervous when I talk to a young person and they start complaining about their parents, which you listen to what they have to say, but I always want to say, okay, what are you thankful for? Because if all you have is critiques of your parents, but you don't have things that you think, well, they gave me that. I'm thankful for the fact that they showed me this or that. Then I know you're not concerned with righteousness. You're just concerned with, this is what the idea of critical theory is, that we can critique something and tear it down. That's the idea. And so if that's your attitude towards your parents, you have nothing good to say, you have no gratefulness. Well, dad always worked hard. He might have been kind of harsh with me, but and he might have never understood me, but he worked hard. He provided for us, and I do appreciate that. Do I see any? If you don't have any of that gratefulness, then I know you're just going to make the same or possibly opposite mistakes. You're not going to land in a righteous area where you're actually trying to become more sanctified, trying to see where your parents went wrong and by God's grace improve on it. And so you're just going to make, follow in their hypocrisy in possibly an opposite way. There's always two ditches to fall into. And you're just going to go over there because you don't see what they did well and try to emulate that. You're just going to make probably the opposite errors and be just as unrighteous. So that's a problem. And what we see today, we have statues being torn down, various places within the country, historical figures, people like George Washington. What's wrong with George Washington? He owned slaves. Well, that in itself is not enough to destroy George Washington's legacy. Even if you say, well, I think he should have freed his slaves. I think he should have never owned slaves. I think he should have treated slaves better. Do you appreciate the man for his valor, for his wisdom? Or is your entire vision filled up with his faults? If your entire vision is filled up with his faults, you have never learned to honor your father and mother, because this is what it is like to do that. You learn to focus on the positive aspects instead of the negative aspects. So we see that our social fabric starting to unravel, people not able to honor the good while despising the bad. And you see it with political figures as well. Can you appreciate the good in Barack Obama while despising the fact that he's friends and friendly with all the baby killers? He's positive of that. Can you see the good that Donald Trump does while also despising the fact that he just seems cruel sometimes? He doesn't have, often he seems to lack compassion towards outsiders. Can you still appreciate what he does good? Because those are the sort of things that help a society continue, that we can criticize, we can stand against what's wrong, while being grateful for what's right. And I think you see that's missing in our society, and it does not bode well for the continuance of our way of life. So this is a lesson that we should be learning ourselves and passing on.